All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good afternoon also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us wherever you're watching from. This weekend will mark the end of the 2025 edition of the Washington Auto Show. In fact, this is the penultimate day of that said show, as it will be wrapping up tomorrow. And hopefully you had a chance thus far to be able to check out the show, and be able to share what you thought with about the show with us as well, as we do the show today and talking about our wrap up of it, or perhaps after the fact, if you are there now, that you'll be checking out our show later. So hello from the past if that's the case for you. But with that out of the way, I wanted to be able to dive right into just a little background on the show itself. Um, and talking about the Washington Auto Show, of course, is known as the public policy show among its contemporaries. It is the nation's capital's among its largest shows, produced by the Washington Area New Administration Dealers Association, otherwise known as WNADA. The Washington DC Auto Show remains the largest annual indoor gathering in the nation's capital, spanning 500,000 square feet across two massive floors. The show boasts a variety of vehicles, from electric vehicles and SUVs to high performance sports cars. The show also features a lineup of family friendly activities and interactive displays, such as hands on exhibits, cutting edge virtual reality experiences, and of course, the opportunity to get behind the wheel of some of the latest vehicles. Now, with all of that said, I will not be alone in talking about the wrap up of the show today. My guest co-host on today's show is one of the biggest gearheads, as well as a pop culture enthusiast that I know. I'd like to welcome back onto the show, Mr. Jason Edmonds. Let me bring him on now. Jason, what is going on, man? Oh, hold on. You have me muted. Think you were muted. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, Brandon, good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, just to hit the ground running, as I said, I will dive into some of the elements of the show, and before we dive into the things that we liked about the show, as well as the things that we feel respectively can be tweaked about the show, just in general, what were your initial impressions of this year's show?
In one word, mediocre.
Okay, okay,
Uh, yeah, we can dive into that later. But if I were just to describe it in one word, it'd be mediocre.
okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. So, um, I feel like that's a perfect opportunity because I want to be able, as I said, to dive into the things that are great about it, as well as the tweaks. And I like a lot of times to be able to dive into the positive elements, and to do that. So tell you what, we're going to dive into the tweaks first, but I would say at least initial impressions for me. Um, I had a similar feeling last year going to the show, and we talked about it briefly. And I feel like there were efforts that were made to improve upon last year's show, noticeable efforts to improve upon last year's show. So I'm optimistic about where the show is. I'm not satisfied with where it is, but I am optimistic in the direction that it's heading in terms of things that they did do. So since you are our guest host, Jay, I'm gonna punt it over to you to talk about some of those things that you felt could be tweaked, and then I'll dive into some of my concerns as well. So go ahead, take it away.
Okay. Well, initial impression. I'll start with the positives because I did lead with a a negative or like a neutral statement with my mediocre statement. So,
Okay.
um, I think one of the positives were that the test drives. I was able to test drive a Cybertruck and a Model X and any other Tesla they had available. That was not the case last year. The Cybertruck had a line, and it just released, rightfully so. But the Cybertruck had a line like wrapped around all of Tesla's display, and it took 30 minutes just to get a 30-second sit in the Cybertruck, which I felt was a little bit cheap. Um, Whereas this past week or this week, I was able to drive the Cybertruck on DC streets, and the I don't know if I can say this, maybe we can edit this out, but the representative that was with me let me floor it and let me test the acceleration. And so that was the highlight of my. I've never done that at a car show, and I've never been
Okay.
given that opportunity to just like kind of rev the engine, or I guess the electric motor in this sense of a
Yes.
cyber truck. So yeah, that was fun. Now I'm not gonna lie, that was fun. I brought my son. We had a good time with that. Another positive, they had a lot of the exotics. Um, there, as you mentioned, the 500 square feet were 500,000 square feet rather. Pardon me, were used more in previous auto shows pre-pandemic. Um, there were three levels of the auto show, and the top and third level was strictly dedicated to these exotics or supercars or hypercars or however you want to call it. And we're talking Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Aston Martins, McLarens, Bentley, Rolls Royce, and they were represented it today at this auto show. However, I do feel like a lot of the car manufacturers still didn't have a presence, and that's been the case. That's one of my major qualms with this auto show is that yes, I was able to see the exotics, and I saw all the supercars. I saw the new Lamborghini. I saw the new Porsche. I saw the new Aston Martin, which were all beautiful, amazing cars. The new Ferrari was also beautiful. It was good to see that. But the everyday, more achievable, more attainable cars that were in the luxury segment weren't represented, even from the American automakers. There wasn't an Escalade. There were Cadillac wasn't there. Lincoln wasn't there. I guess that's the Ford equivalent. They're under the Ford umbrella, and Cadillac's under the GM. So those are direct competitors, and they weren't represented. Mercedes, Audi, BMW, Porsche. I can go on and on. Most of the German brands weren't represented, and it just felt like a lot of empty space. Whereas before, there wasn't as much empty space. Now the EVs were there. Tesla was there, Polestar was there, Lucid was there, but it still felt a little bit sparse in my opinion. There were EV testers last year indoors, they didn't have those. There was a more of a representation for the children, like they had a lot more child like friendly things. They had the go-karts. Now my brother has those go-karts, so I've already seen those Segway go-karts. They're really fast, but I know that they decrease the speed because they're app controlled. So I know the go-karts can go extremely fast, and the go-karts they had weren't going that fast. And that could just be for safety reasons. But I
Yeah.
just saw
Yeah.
like having insight on what these things can do, and seeing that they weren't really doing that there was just kind of like, okay. Um, then they had the e-bikes. They had those last year as well. Those are cool, but again, I've ridden an e-bike it's just, I mean, those are cool things to have, but in prior years we had the Jeep rough terrain thing where you can go up and down the thing and it does all the little, yeah,
I
it
re-
does the,
I
yeah, you
remember.
remember that?
Yeah.
And you also have like the EV, like they had a professional driver. You sit passenger seat or rear seats, wherever you were. If you were with a group of people or by yourself, you would sit with the driver, and the driver would take you through a course, and the driver would do like really good precision driving, and those were exciting, thrilling aspects of the car show. That wasn't there this year, so I'm just like, okay, so you added this one thing where you can test drive all these different vehicles, which was cool, but then you subtracted these other things that made the car show more appealing. And then just looking around, I went twice this past week on both, and they were during the week, so I could my opinion is a little bit skewed. But I remember in years prior, even if I did go during the week, it was a lot more people there. It was just really nobody in there, and which is good for me because I get to go see all the cars and do all the things.
Right.
But there wasn't many people. There weren't many cars that I really wanted to see. Like on the second level, Toyota basically had a third of the whole space, and I'm just like, how many Highlanders and Toyota Rav4s and Priuses we want to see right now? Like it was just like
Right.
redundant. They had the same car in multiple iterations, whereas prior years they were all the car brands. You just get excited to see all the new cars, all the new things that they were doing. and it just wasn't the case this time. So
Nah, I hear you. I hear you. I mean, I guess a lot of those things, some of those things that I do, feel you on. I do remember that we did have the I don't if memory serves in the prior year there was with some of the vehicles there was like a massive incline that you were able to kind of test drive the cars to see if see for it to demonstrate how well it could climb those inclines, and that was really cool to see. um, I do think that maybe it just may just be a case of them just being very careful in terms of their attendees and the safety of their attendees, especially considering the date. One of the days that I went was on Public Policy Day, and for those that aren't aware, those are normally where you have kind of like your high rollers, you have your government officials and all those things, and I'm sure they don't want to put their lives at risk of doing having something accidental like that happen. So perhaps that had a role in playing, that decision to, as you said, delete it.
hmm
I would say one thing that, and I've mentioned this in other years, Jay, is this is supposed to be, and obviously I'm going to start off with the negative first, and then I'll wrap it up with the positive side. Is this is supposed to be, as I mentioned at the top, a public policy show. This is a show where among all the other auto shows, as I just mentioned moments ago, you have government officials come to. There are opportunities to dive into the state of the auto industry and to get into initiatives that affect the overall industry, the overall automotive industry. And if you're leading the way in that type of in that type of aspect, I'm expecting, and not to say I enjoyed the show, I expect to see way more things that I am not going to see at any other show.
hmm
And what I'm saying about that is, and I mentioned this again, are those concept cars. There were a couple of there were a couple of cars that were there, but you want to build as much buzz as possible by having as many impressive concept cars that are years down the line where it's like, man, like, you know, this is something that I'm not going to be able to see at the auto show on the West Coast, auto show in the Midwest, because this is supposed to be the destination.
right,
And to be able to go to, and I'm going to name drop it again, to be able to go to CES and to be able to see a lot of concept cars. And CES, again, its focus is not even on the automotive industry, its focus is on all the industries. And to still be able to have to be more impressive than your auto shows, that that shouldn't be the case. Like
right,
the Washington Auto Show should far surpass. If that is your only industry of focus, you're not focused on any other industry. When you're talking about CES, you're just peppering a couple of, you're peppering things here and there because you have such a broad focus of all the industries. When your focus is literally only one industry, you better be better than everybody else, regardless of what that show's focus is, what other shows what their focuses are. And
right,
I still, at this point, as much fun as I had, this year, and as much as I felt that it was an improvement upon last year, I still can't say that because there wasn't enough concept cars there. As I said, there were some there. I'm not going to say that there weren't, but I still feel like in terms of that ratio, there should be more there. And to a degree, I understand why it's not there because you're trying to provide incentive to people to buy the cars. And obviously, if you have more concept cars there, those are cars that are not available yet, that people can't buy yet. And you want to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck of producing the show, that business can be generated where you have actual vehicles that can be purchased. So I get that to a degree, but at the same time, I'm like, come on, like you're the public policy show. Like you're the public policy show among the entire industry. You're in the nation's capital. You're in a place where decisions are made for the entire, for all of the country. And like you're supposed to be set. You need to stand out in that way. So
yeah,
with that being said, things that I would say that I did like is the fact that there were, just as you said, there were a lot of hands-on experiences. So, for families that are out there, if you bring, your family there, there were a lot of things to do, whether it was with, animals and some of the cool little, vehicles that, your kids could ride and things like that. And there were a lot of virtual activities. And I'll have him on here in a moment. There was a cool experience that they had, Star Wars related exhibit that they had. A friend of mine was there at that exhibit booth, so we'll have him here in the moment. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say like those were the things that that I enjoyed the most. And just as you said, which I'll also add as a plus, is I'm not going to say we'll take credit, from having our conversation last year, but I'm sure it was something that was a common criticism across the board. In any case, is that you had more folks that came. And because I think I had spoken with you that day that I went on public policy day, that I was like, I don't recognize, this EV company. I don't remember them coming. And I think it was, what was it? Starts with a L, with was it Loom? Uh
Lucid.
Lucid. Yes. I
Mm-hmm.
was brain farting on it. But yeah, like, I mean, there were quite a few others that I had not seen last year that made an appearance this year. And at the end of the day, it's always fun too to be able to see a lot of the those customization organizations that come out to the auto show, and the impressive like customizations that they provide to vehicles that we're already familiar with, and even to newer ones that we have yet to see. So all of those things were cool. But I'll punt it over to you. I know you said that in terms of things that you enjoyed, you gave the story about being in the vehicle there. In terms of the, let me see, the innovations and the trends that we're seeing in terms of EV, do you feel like this year's show, while not perfect, of course, did a better job this year of highlighting that than it did last year?
Yes, short answer, yes.
Okay.
There was a greater representation of EV,
Okay.
uh, and in amongst even the known auto manufacturers, there were greater representations of EV electric vehicles. And as always every year, all of the people who represent whatever auto company, they are very knowledgeable. They know their stuff. They're very good at speaking to the specs of the car, the performance of the car, how much everything. And so I never have a problem with the people actually um, doing the jobs there. My issue, I didn't even know, my issue is that there's not a lot of representation amongst all the auto manufacturers, and
Okay.
in prior years, it seemed like it was a showcase for those who may or may not be interested in purchasing these cars, and therefore all of the auto manufacturers saw this as an opportunity to kind of sell to people who may not be looking right now, but maybe looking later on, or are taking their family for something and then discover a car that they love that they didn't even consider before, because now they can touch it and they can feel it. So
Yeah.
those kind of aspects are kind of going away. I see a lot of these other auto manufacturers are just like, okay, do we really want to allocate resources to this experience, even though is it going to help our bottom line? Because DC is a huge market. So I'm
Huge.
not, and it's a lot of affluent people here. It's one of the most
Yes.
expensive the cities to live in,
And
and
yeah, highest
and
income earners
highest
in
income earners. And
the
there was a
country.
huge there was a lot of SUVs. As you can see now, Americans love their SUVs, so they're going away from the sedan and going into like smaller SUVs, mid-size SUVs, not so many large SUVs, not so many pickup trucks, but like the smaller and mid-size SUV market is booming. Like Volkswagen had just, I think exclusively minus, I think they did have one uh like concept or newer EV vehicle, and then I think Buick had a coupe. I didn't even know Buick made coupes. I'm like, why did they have a concept coupe like on display? Like it's a Buick. Like what are we talking about right now? But it was cool
Right.
looking. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
it was nice. It was a nice, cool looking car, but it's just unexpected because Buick is not known for. Just like I feel like they're still an old person brand. They haven't really rebranded themselves to like they're not. They're still my grandmother's car as opposed to like a car I'm gonna go seek out and go drive myself. And I didn't even know that the auto show was a public policy show. With that information, they're not doing a great job of branding that. They need to change the marketing on that. There should be more legislators there. Like you should be able to meet your congressman or meet your representative or meet somebody who can influence anything because there's now just like a place where kids come in to see cool cars and then run around for a little bit. And it's like that's what I was like. You see a lot. I saw like just people watching. I saw a lot of men. The demographic is mostly male, or people are like couples. Like, I saw a lot of couples and families. So and not so many just women. I saw a few women with their kids, but like mostly like women by themselves. A group of women who were of age to purchase a nicer car. I can't even say on my I can't even see I saw that. So how are you marketing to the biggest consumers in America, the women? What are you doing to grab their attention other than say, hey, bring your kids here? Like what are you doing to grab them? So yeah, I I do find that they are I don't think that they're being negligent. I do think they're doing a great like they're trying to work with whatever
Yeah.
they have, but
Yeah.
I think the marketing needs to improve. And if they want more people in the doors, they raised the price like double. I think last year was like $12, and the year prior was like $8. This year was $15. I couldn't even find a Groupon for it. So I'm just like, what am I getting for this additional money that is going to cause me to want to really go here? I can't really say that they have a lure for me. Before in prior years, you could meet a celebrity, you could meet one of
Correct. Yeah.
the Redskins
I'm
players,
glad you brought
or
that up. That I would say that was another minus too. I do
yeah,
remember that in prior years. Yeah.
and then they had the dude in the robot suit running around. They did have a driving simulator. That was cool. So, but they've always had a driving simulator in here. So yeah, just meeting celebrities, winning prizes, those type of things. They did have certain prizes, but it always requires. They all do require you to sign up so they can sell you stuff and call you about buying the car. And that's really what it's about. That the Tesla people called
I
me the
love the
next day.
cynicism. No, it's real though. That's real though.
Yeah, and I get it. It's like, you want to sell these things. That's the whole point of the auto show is to market your product. So products are meant to be sold. So yeah, I mean, I think again, the marketing needs to improve. And I think the rhetoric behind why the auto show exists and then the importance of it being in the District of Columbia is not emphasized enough.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And with that being said, I believe that we have our guest on. I'm gonna bring on Felix now. Let me see if I can get him. Felix, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
All right. So talk to us, man. Welcome to Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Who's the gentleman you have with you?
This is Eric Jacobs. Hello. He is the CEO of the foundation for TSJ Foundation.
All right. Excellent. Excellent.
Nice to meet you both. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So can you talk briefly about, what you guys have here? Because I was talking about this was actually one of the highlights of this year's show is what you have on display.
Thank you. You want to share or? So we have a display of different robotics and different props that we use to promote STEM education. Over
Okay.
here, we actually debuted our EcoCrest, which is our new educational platform that could travel to different schools and promote STEM education. So we really
Excellent.
enhance like STEM, so science, technology, engineering, art, and math,
Okay.
using robotics and things that are recognizable to kids so that they could build an interest while having fun at the same time.
All right. Awesome. Awesome.
Cool.
And I know you also had you can demonstrate the vehicle that you have because I know you were, going into insight about how that whole project came together.
Yep. So we thought about like how we could approach different school systems and try to bring the STEM lessons to them. Sometimes they have STEM festivals and stuff, but we really needed something like a mobile classroom. So the vehicle
Sure.
behind us is actually a mobile classroom that has educational systems inside, modular educational systems that we could alter to any type of curriculum. So, and then we also have pods outside that does workshops and seminars that the kids can learn through.
All right. Excellent. Excellent.
Nice.
Excellent. Excellent. And Jay, did you have, I know you had a chance to head over there, the days that you were there, but did you have any questions that perhaps, weren't asked, while you were there?
Oh, hey guys, thanks for taking this time to talk to us. Um, when did this start? This whole emphasis on STEM and this kind of like synthesis with the Star Wars theme. Why Star Wars of all?
Okay. So we actually started at a foundation in 2016.
Hmm.
And we started in mobile entertainment. So we had a bunch of Star Wars themed vehicles that we used to kind of bring up spirits, uh, cheer on kids and stuff. And we realized that the kids are highly interested in how those were built, how they were made. So we decided that we're going to start changing it to being able to show off these robots, these vehicles, but also teach kids the skills that they need to engineer and build their own designs through 3D printing, electrical design, fabrication, art, everything.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, awesome, awesome, awesome. So, Felix, I just wanted to, give you guys the space to, briefly talk about what you have. Before I let you go, can you tell, folks where they can find you if they have not been to the auto show today, or they're planning on coming
Okay.
today
So
or
we
even
do
tomorrow.
attend a lot of school functions as far as science festivals, STEM nights, maker spheres. But you can
Okay.
also find us on our website at tsjfoundation.org. That's probably the easiest place to find where we'll be next, as well as any information about our foundation.
All right, excellent. And what about if they're coming to the auto show either today or tomorrow? Where can folks find you?
So we are in the center of the bottom level of the auto show, kind of right next to the Corvette and the Mustang exhibits and the car clubs.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you guys for hopping on. Really do appreciate it. I'm gonna let you guys go because I'm sure is busy over there, especially on the second to last day. But thanks again for hopping on.
All right, thank you very much. Thank
Thanks,
All
you.
right, man.
guys.
Later.
Thanks.
All right, so that is going to do it for what we have with Felix and a company talking about what they have going on at the auto show. And to answer your question too about regarding the Star Wars stuff, Felix is a uber Star Wars fan, so that is another reason why he implemented that Star Wars passion. If memory serves, he is a part of that organization, the uh I feel bad. I'm brain farting on an organization where they're all dressed up as Mandos.
Hmm.
I want to say it's the you guys can let me know in the comments. I don't know if it's the 501 or the name of the organization, but it's a not for profit if memory serves. But you guys can let me know in the comments. But yes, Uber, Star Wars fan, so he's implementing both of those said things, both of those said passions. But again,
Right.
all stuff because they also had and they didn't have a chance to show it in the video. Is the what is it? They had I don't know if it was a Cadillac or I'm trying to think of the name of the vehicle, but they had it customized to look like Darth Vader. So even
Ah,
like the interiors and the neon that they implemented onto the vehicle was all tailored after the color scheme of Darth Vader. So that was really cool.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, as I said, like there are a lot of great things there at the show, and it was clear that there was an effort to make tweaks to things that happened in prior years. Based off the conversation that I had with Mr. O'Donnell, who's the for those of you that are not aware out there, John O'Donnell, he's the president and CEO of the Washington Auto Show and of Wanada that I mentioned at the top. Um, One of the things that he has mentioned in other conversations, and we kind of touched on it a bit, is just that idea of post pandemic, there has been a challenge in terms of how customers are purchasing their vehicles. And just as you touched on, Jay, is that idea that now, based on the nature of how people make their purchases in this post pandemic time, you're finding more often than not or you're finding in some cases that folks are willing to buy things digitally versus being able to buy it in person. However, I will say, despite that fact, despite that challenge and that additional ability that consumers have, there are those that are very old school and still want to be able to touch and feel what it is that they're buying. And sometimes, having that rapport with your salesperson helps in that process too. Because when I was attending Public Policy Day, they were commenting on the fact they kind of did like a litmus test of people raising their hand of when you were buying your vehicle, did the person that was selling it to you help in that process? Like, would you have bought it if you didn't like the salesperson? And most people raised their hands that they wouldn't have bought it if they didn't like the salesperson or the person that they developed that rapport and that relationship with. So there is something to that still. I feel like, and you can agree with me or disagree with me, is there, I feel like there needs to be a better, and this is just in general, a better method in not only getting your gearheads like yourself, folks that are enthusiasts that know the industry in and out, but you also have to get, and you touched on this with the demos that you saw and observing, people watching, so to speak, is getting your casual potential car owners as well. When the bet a lot of times when you're finding the things that are most successful is when you're able to bridge that gap between those that are going to buy your product and those that may potentially buy your product, and kind of you know t- you know taking them over the hill, so to speak, to make that decision to say yes. So I want to say that continuing to bring in those casual folks, and like I feel like even though we have that idea of this show being a public policy show, that shouldn't be an idea that even casual, a car enthusiasts or owners are not aware of. Like everyone should be aware of that. That should be, something, as you said, should be promoted more because it's a big deal. And I feel like it's kind of slept on that, our show has that type of pedigree. So,
Right.
last thoughts before we wrap up here.
Uh, well, car show again, I will always go because, as you said, I'm a gearhead, so it can just be one car in there. I'm gonna show up. Um, but I think not only are we moving towards more use of EVs in these cities, we're moving towards a time where the city is going away from promoting folks from driving into the city. Like as you know, the parking is terrible here,
Yep.
and they're just trying to like de-incentivize driving into the city and more so using the metro or Uber or any type of public or rideshare transportation to commute in and out of the city. And I've noticed that a lot of my colleagues and a lot of my peers around our age are not getting cars because they don't need cars.
Yeah.
So that's also a huge thing because the cost of living is increased. And if
Yeah.
you choose to live in the city, you don't really need a car. Like, like people like me, I need a car because I go in and out of the city in the suburbs. So there's not always public transportation in the places that I go. But if you are just a city dweller and everything you do is in the city, is really no real need for you to own a car. So I think that is becoming a trend in the cities now. In the rural areas in the suburbs, that's not a trend. So SUV is king right now. The F-150 is still the top selling vehicle of all time. So like those things like are still going to be this top selling pickup truck. Let me take that back. It's not the top selling
Right.
the top
Right.
selling pickup truck.
Yeah.
But so it would be interesting to see where they go from now and how they are able to bring back some of these auto brands that had a bigger presence there and continue to grow this whole public policy thing because that is quite interesting. And it could you could marry that to another initiative like I know the Black National Black Caucus is a thing here, or like Congressional Black Caucus, CBC weekend, or like you marry that to something else, and then see if that brings in more interest and more uh, these auto brands that have kind of said, nah, we don't really need you to kind of sell in this area because we're already doing okay. But yeah, I look forward. I have hope for the auto show going forward, and I have hope that they'll continue to make improvements and give the people something more appealing down the line.
For sure, for sure. And hopping back into that conversation with O'Donnell is, as you said, I have hope as well, especially considering the fact, I don't, for those of you who hadn't seen it, he had commented on, and I asked him, what does the preparation for for the auto show look like? Does it start immediately on the last day, or does it start during? Prior to the interview that we had, literally moments before, he had been doing preparation for the 2026 show. So it's an ongoing thing, and the effort and the willingness is there.
Hmm.
Um, I would say take advantage of the opportunity, just as you said, of putting that idea of it being a public policy show more into the forefront. It is on a lot of materials for the show, but I feel like more could be done to highlight that fact, because as I said, that is a very big deal among an entire industry to be able to say that. Also, with the connections that you have with this show, we're going into, this show is getting into Black History Month in terms of the length of when the show started and now when it's ending. So there was an effort, something that could be done there to connect things, and perhaps it is already being done, but it has to be in terms of how it is promoted, a larger effort, I feel, to demonstrate that. Because I would say outside of that, if memory serves, a lot of times it's either falls on Super Bowl weekend when it's wrapping up, or it falls close to it, at least the week before. So there's a lot of follow through there. There's momentum there that you could take advantage of by having certain guests there that are related to that sport. So going back to what you were saying about the guest piece. So I mean, there are a lot of things that can be done, but as you said, and in mentioning before, I'm glad that I can't say that it was a drop from last year. I can say that it is an improvement for sure from last year. So with that said, that's going to wrap up from what we have for the wrap up of the Washington Auto Show. Before we go, always punt it off to my guest host. Jay, can you tell folks where they can find you?
You can find me on Instagram at J Squared Fitness, and that's where you can find me. So hit me up there. I got some fitness stuff going on there. If you want some training, holla at me.
All right, bet. So, with that being said, again, I want to thank JE for hopping on here on Movers and Shakers Unlimited as a guest host, talking about the Washington Auto Show. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on X, or Brandon Choi _ ENT on Instagram. That's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see y'all soon, y'all. Bye.